Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journeys, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2024. Specifically, I'd like to focus our attention, or keep our attention focused upon a wonderful multi-disc set, which we have been speaking about over the course of a number of videos up to now, because there are many films included in this great set, and many films from the uh, brilliant, extraordinary filmmaker artist Chantal Akerman. And of course, I'm speaking of this set, which is designated Spy number 1203. Chantal Akerman Masterpieces, 1968 to 1978. And we have been going through the films or discussing the films. I once again apologize profusely for my very shallow perspective and a lack of knowledge base with respect to the works of Chantal Akerman, as they are included here and elsewhere. So I apologize profusely, but I am a great admirer of her works, and I have seen her works from some time back, and I've been very captivated by them and perplexed by them and in awe of them. And truly mesmerized in a way that also draws out a connection with the humane and the emotional, very much so. And that is definitely the case. Is definitely the case for this particular film that I wish to speak about today. Um, it is another special film. This is an incredible work of art, and I'm so happy that it's being made available here, courtesy of this Criterion release. In this wonderful format for as many people to enjoy and to watch as possible, I hope. This is the film which is found on the third Blu-ray disc. This is a 3-disc Blu-ray set, so it's found on the third Blu-ray disc. It is a film which is described as being from the year 1978, and the name of the filmmaker is Chantal Akerman, and the name of the work is Les Rendez-vous d'Anna. This is the really towering achievement of a film. And this is described as being from the year 1978, and it's also described as having a running time of approximately 127 minutes. So it is a feature-length work, and my goodness, it is so bold and so beautiful and very provocative and so honest, and there's a sense of directness and almost a true and pure sense of intimacy, perhaps, that is something that we can say is akin to Chantal Akerman's cinema philosophy overall, and therefore this film can be said to be a wonderful prime example of this. And it is the final feature film, or the final work, the final masterpiece of this set, Chantal Akerman Masterpieces 1968-1978. And it is from 1978 and written and directed by Chantal Akerman, and starring in among its wonderful cast, people like Jean-Pierre Cassel and Marie Noël and Léa Massary, and starring in a towering performance, a brilliant, bold, beautiful, and brave performance, so delicate, and a sense of pure intensity on the one hand, and deep emotion and commitment on the other. It is a very beautiful performance. And this is by Aurore Clément as Anna in this work, which is Les Rendez-vous d'Anna. And once again, I must apologize for my terrible pronunciation of the language. I hope you can forgive me. I'm doing my very best, but I'm making so many mistakes. I apologize for this. And also I have to apologize for my terrible grasp over the subject matter of these works. Chantal Akerman films. But I must say that I am so taken with them. I have been for a number of years now. But this set, I think, in particular, has given me the opportunity not just to revisit and to re-celebrate her works and her legacy in the context of the span of the years here, but also to make new discoveries along the way and to make some points of say, journey that perhaps are new to me and fresh to my eyes as well. So I am learning so many things thanks to the wonderful setup of this great Criterion set. And that includes the inclusion of the great film Les Rendez-vous d'Anna. Les Rendez-vous d'Anna, it could be translated into English as the rendezvous of Anna or the meetings of Anna or Anna's meetings. And I think this is it's very apropos because it is a film which follows this main character, this woman named Anna, who is a Roi Clément character. And we understand also through some dialogue that is exchanged here and there in hotel lobbies, sometimes telephone calls which are exchanged or messages thereof which are exchanged, telephone messages, etc., become a really important key factor of this, as well as telephone calls, as well as talking with people, the front hotel lobby front desk staff, etc., as well as other characters that we meet. But through these snippets of conversation that we get here and there, we understand that Anna is an artist and a filmmaker on a type of tour for promotion with respect to her works. That's the setup that we understand it. And as she is on tour, she is traveling to various places in Europe during this time in the late 1970s. And so some of the key places that, as she is traveling to these places, it is the act of the travel, or to be more specific, it is the act of, say, not necessarily the showing or the engagement with the film process or the film showing process per se, but rather the film instead focuses in on Anna herself as she is in various spaces, such as the hotel lobbies, such as the hotel rooms that she is staying in, and such as the time that is spent, or how she spends the time, or how she perceives the time to be spent, if at all. And we do feel that wonderful sense of the temporal, say, the temporal progression on the one hand, and we can query or question whether the characters are also feeling that sense of temporal progression with us, or are their feelings or minds or preoccupations elsewhere. So this is again, another entry point, I think, into the way in which this film very in a loving way glides into that sense of the beautifully poetic, paradoxical juxtaposition of contradictions. So, and I really love that. And we can look at something and consider it from two divergent interpretations. And so from the outset, we can see, again, time and space treated in a way that perhaps could be said to be from multiple different angles. And that also helps us, the viewer, too, in terms of how we are to engage with the character of Anna, how we are to read into her personality, and how we are to sense what it is she is feeling and what it is she is experiencing, because there are moments where she is seen perhaps inert or seemingly inert, maybe on the bed, looking out in the distance somewhere, or maybe she is by a window, or maybe she is on the telephone talking with respect to some kind of some kind of arrangement, or maybe she is seeking some messages that were left behind for her while she was away, and the like. And there is also the idea of venturing out and also meeting people. And here we have aspects of what we can say are being tied to the title itself, Les Rendez-vous d'Anna, because over the course of this work, we also get the opportunity to see Anna meet various people in the places that she is at and she is traveling here. Some people are maybe perfect strangers, people that she has met maybe very recently or without knowing too much about, but maybe some kind of sexual encounter might occur, or maybe some kind of discussion might occur, which indeed is part of the case here for Anna. We are privy to aspects of her sexuality and her own, say, feelings of desire and want, and there are moments of, I think, very honest and earnest and very beautiful moments of a type of sexual exploration and also expressions of sort of physical and emotional needs. But they are done in, I think, various points and in various, say, outcomes. So there might be a meeting with, say, a man, and this may or may not result in a tryst. And if that's the case, then what will result in terms of the emotional outcomes either way? And this also sets the stage as an example of how Aurore Clémence Anna, how she responds to, say, sort of the physical interactions with other people, how that and other men, and also how that is affecting her in certain aspects. We do see her interactions with other men throughout this film in some regard to a certain degree. Sometimes it may be flirtatious, other times it may be wholly one-sided flirtation. There might be instances where the discussions between one of the men and Anna might delve into the background of the character themselves, some background into their lives and their families, and what it is they want with respect to Anna, and what it is that Anna is responding to or perhaps not responding to in terms of that invitation to maybe an emotional connection, but maybe that emotional connection is not something for her. And so seeing that process play itself out, as well as the way in which Anna is a listener and an observer to a lot of the dialogue of the scenes involving the other persons that are part of these meetings, such as the men that we meet along the way, such as someone on a train as well, and also Jean-Pierre Cassel comes into the picture. And so these, in their own way, distinct ways, become opportunities for us to learn a little bit about, or to observe a little bit about, how Anna responds and reacts, and how she is listening and also reacting and perhaps considering that listening. This act of listening, I should say, itself is very reminiscent of some of the acts of listening that we saw in previous Chantal Akerman films that we have seen in this set, such as, for instance, Je tu il elle, where we had some interactions between Chantal Akerman in that film and another character, a man, a truck driver character in that film, where the truck driver was seen talking a lot about some of his background details, and Chantal Akerman was listening, and also we were listening along with her. And then also there is there's another film called L'Enfant Aimé, où je joue à être une femme mariée, where Chantal Akerman also appears with another woman who speaks a lot about her own married life and sort of dissatisfaction of married life, etc. And so what this is very, and also there are other instances where we have a voiceover narration work, such as Le 15-8, for instance, where we have some kind of almost a therapeutic outpouring or cathartic type of discussion from the very direct heart and soul of an individual that is the subject of a particular work. So this is, I think, an indication of where Chantal Akerman is really drawing or guiding us with the humanity of her eye and the treatment of her characters. Anna is in a sense giving the space for these characters to talk and speak about their innermost feelings in a way that is very direct. It is very respectful. It doesn't go too much in terms of the intrusive cinematic styling which we understand in terms of Chantal Akerman. Her style is her style. There is a way in which there's a kind of fixed a positioning of camera oftentimes. Sometimes there's a distance between a geometrically calculated distance between the figures of the frame and who are speaking, and us via the camera, etc. But this is also itself very stylistic, but also it's meant, I think, to show a degree of distance and respect, which in turn is itself very humane. and thus to allow a furtherance of, say, the truth or authenticity of what people are really feeling and hoping and wanting in the various encounters that Anna is having. So this is true for instance, the men, the various men that she meets. This is also true for the women that she meets, and there are very key characters, women characters that she meets here along the way. This is Magali Noël's character, where Ida, where we're talking a little bit about the possible past relationship and the say the relationship breakdowns that related directly to Anna herself, and so Magali Noël's character who meets her at um, who meets her at a certain point of her trip, discusses this point and then pleads with her in terms of her own wants, in terms of her son and the possibility of getting married with Anna, etc., and seeing Anna's uh, uh, reaction and her dialogue reaction, and also the act of her listening, also provides us and Magali Noël's character the opportunity in a brilliant bravura performance to sit down with her as they're waiting for the train to Anna's train to arrive at the station, and essentially give us an outpouring of herself and her heart and soul and what it is she's really thinking in a way that sometimes can be seen as somewhat abrupt and somewhat rude, because some of the points that she mentions in that dialogue scene, it's a brilliant scene, by the way, that she mentions, does have some certain implications about Anna and her life and the hopes that she has in terms of Anna marrying, etc. So this idea of sitting and listening and allowing characters to tell us their innermost thoughts is really powerful in the hands of Chantal Akerman, and it's done so beautifully in these excerpts here, in these rendezvous d'Anna. And I should say also, there is a key mother-daughter relationship that is lingering in the background, but then also emerging quite directly in the foreground. And this is where we have the meeting between Anna and her mother, and it is another very powerful scene. It is a moment where we, in fact, might see, in certain instances, roles reversed, which is quite fascinating. The roles reversed in the sense that when we get to the scenes involving Anna and her mother, and they're meeting and talking, and Anna's mother saying that she wants to regard her daughter, look at her daughter, as they're spending some very valuable time together at night, in the evening, and together very close in a room in a hotel, in a very close and warm and intimate setting between mother and daughter. That is also a very beautiful, touching scene, because, as I mentioned, the role reversal, this also allows Anna to express herself in this way. Again, generally speaking, the setups of the meetings with Anna have been that while Anna is not always totally, say, silent, she does have certain parts when she's speaking, and those parts are very significant in the meetings. Primarily, it's been usually focused on, or one can say it's focusing in on the meetings where people are expressing themselves to her, and she is reacting. Well, here, in a very key meeting between her and her mother, it is Anna that is given the opportunity to speak and bring forth some of her own inner feelings in words to her mother, maybe sometimes looking out in a separate direction outwards, but they are together, which is so fascinating. And that in turn leads to the possibility of, is there a connection there, or is there a lack of connection there? And you'll have to watch the film to make your own determination, which is another great juxtaposition of contradictions in the world of the cinema of Chantal Akerman. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of the most perfect moments in a film that could be said to be quite perfect indeed. And it's a moment where we also get a sense of her inner self, Anna's inner self. There's a frank discussion of sexual attraction and sexual encounter with another woman, and so here we have an exploration of Anna's sexuality and attraction to this other woman that she is describing. And so this also brings us into a further, say, understanding, or a further, say, closeness with Anna and her own thoughts and feelings. I mean, and it's really amazing too, because we have seen, of course, some of the physicality of her intimate scenes with some of the other characters in the film, and it involves maybe scenes of showcasing of the physical body and nudity on the one hand, and with people who are men, who are male characters on the one hand, and here also, and we do get a sense too of a certain degree of connection that Anna seems to be having with some of these men, depending on who they are, of course, because as we progress with the various characters that we meet, we see her demeanor change depending on how well she knows them. So, and so there is a certain degree of intimacy that one can say is there with respect to some of those scenes. But here also there is a discussion of her love and her sexual attraction and a thrill that she was feeling with this encounter with this woman that she is talking about here with her mother. And so this is, I think, a really beautiful moment, a really, really beautiful moment, a, a sort of a guide through a sense of, again, who Anna really is, and that she's sharing these moments with her mother and thus with us. It is quite lovely indeed. And then the furtherance of the nuance is how, say, we might interpret her mother reacting, and how we can see her gaze and what it is she might be thinking or might not be thinking. This is, I think, something that is really quite remarkable indeed. The roles are reversed in that way, right? So what I like about that too is it's a really nice link to another film from the Chantal Akerman canon, which is News from Home, where we had a very key expression of the mother-daughter relationship, Chantal Akerman's mother and Chantal Akerman, in a series of letters that are read. They're read by Chantal Akerman, though, and so I think in that discussion of the film News from Home, I was trying to make the point at some point in that video that it could be said that the roles seem to be reversed, such as Chantal Akerman as the daughter seems to be reading the words of her mother so as to maybe perhaps achieve or hope to achieve a sense of empathy with what her mother must be feeling. And so that type of role reversal could be said to be also existent here to a certain degree anyway, with respect to Anna, and the fact that it comes in the mother-daughter relationship scenes, I think, is quite extraordinary. But also here, this role reversal, in a sense, Chantal Akerman cinema. Now we are really given the opportunity in this dialogue-driven way to listen to the words of Anna. We have seen her react, we have heard her words, and we can see through certain ritualistic actions what it is she must be feeling and seeing, or we can assume or guess what it is she must be feeling and seeing. But here we have a kind of direct through line, which is really quite remarkable and amazing. Again, the humanity, the humaneness of Chantal Akerman's eye and her cinema as it wanders and travels with us. It is truly remarkable. Also, the travel log aspect of this film. I mean, this film does sometimes take place on trains. We see Anna walking along train cars, passing other passengers, maybe camera setups of her somewhat a medium shot with looking directly at her. Sometimes we see shots outside through the window as the camera, the train is traveling maybe to its next station destination, or maybe it's resting at a station before it's scheduled to leave, etc. So these travel log shots, in a certain degree, also are reminiscent of News from Home. The idea too of place and time. And also a type of way in which we inhabit space, or maybe space becomes a cynical, type of world bereft of sort of a human touch, as it were, sterile, or is it something that is said to be very warm and very much expressive of a type of human experience? And again, that type of contradiction is something that we saw, I think, really boldly in a work like News from Home, which is really fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So there are a lot of points that are bringing us back to the works of Chantal Akerman over the course of this set, much like a kind of summation work, as well as being a great film in and of itself. I must say, too, that I think the comparisons with another grand achievement of Chantal Akerman, and that is Jeanne Dielman, 23 Quai du Commerce, 1080 Bruxelles. This is another parallel that I think is undeniable. The notion of a type of routine, and the routine and ritual. And going from place to place to place, it is sometimes we hear the voice of people on the telephone or the telephone recording answering machine. Uh, the voices can be sometimes they're female, other times they are male, and there might be something gleaned from this in terms of a type of uh, male dominated orientation, which leads to, say, Anna being essentially directed from one place to another place to another place, granted for the furtherance of, say, the promotion of her work, which you understand is very important to her, the artist filmmaker, much like Chantal Akerman herself, the artist filmmaker. But I think there is also the possibility of interpretation, at least in terms of the way in which the interactions between the inner world of Anna and the exterior world and the social mores, shall we say, might find expression in terms of gender roles and the role of women and sort of expressions of femininity within that context of gender roles and identity, and therefore to see how Anna, in that viewing and context, carries herself in the various episodes throughout the film. Sometimes we might see her seemingly outwardly maybe inert of feeling, but is that really the case? Is she really inert of feeling, or is there some kind of way in which this is her this is a kind of manifestation of what I said, suggested in terms of the inward and external vis-a-vis gender roles and expressions of femininity within the context of these gender roles. And I think that is something that's very much apropos Jeanne Dielman, 23 Quai du Commerce, 1080 Bruxelles, very much so. There is a point that can be made in that context, though, which is brought up in the wonderful mini essay on the film Les Rendezvous à Dana, which is on pages starting on page 37 of the great booklet here from Criterion, Beatrice Loiza, where she does mention the fact. Let me point out here that. Let's see here. Oh yes, yes. Yes, in around the second paragraph, let me just quote here this this great essay on page 37, and I quote: "After Jeanne Dielman, Ackerman was hailed as the future of art cinema as well as a champion of feminism. Though she acknowledged the film's political resonance, she bristled at interpretations of her work that reduced its concerns to 'quote unquote' womanhood, 'quote unquote' Jewishness, or other markers of fixed identity. Because Les Rendezvous d'Anna was distributed by Gaumont, a major studio, and made by a male-dominated crew, Jean Panzer was replaced Ackerman's frequent collaborator Babette Mangold as cinematographer. It was considered a betrayal by many audiences who linked Ackerman's artistry to a feminist mandate." This is also a really interesting point to keep in mind. Now, I really think that that idea of a sort of expressions of feminism in the context of gender roles is a really fair interpretation to make of this work. Um, Les Rendezvous d'Anna. But we also have to remember too how the film itself, in terms of its in its production values and the production circumstances, that also made itself in a really interesting meta way, also serve as further commentary and points of discussion in that context are really fascinating. And also the point that Anna herself as a character is a filmmaker and showcasing her film. And Chantal Ackerman is, she's acknowledged it in one of the, in the supplement with the discussion with Aurore Clément, the interview from 2007 or so, which we'll talk about a little bit later. They mentioned almost immediately how the character was essentially almost the pattern was Chantal Ackerman herself. So this kind of parallel between sort of the internal and external forces, and even to the point of how this film was weighed and how this film was regarded in the context of say, readings of this film from the point of view of the feminism perspective, I think is really quite extraordinary. And layer upon layer upon layer. I mean, it's one of those things too where it reminds us, again, like many other works in the Chantal Ackerman canon, like La Chambre, for instance. I mean, these are films that really almost blur the boundary in a way between what is quote unquote narrative fiction and what is quote unquote behind the camera and real. And so, I mean, you think about a work like Je tu il elle. What is real? What is narrative? Or you think about a work like La Chambre, same thing, or L'Enfant Aimé, same thing. Saute ma ville, same thing. News from Home. So those sorts of parallels, I think, are inviting, even to those films that seem to be the most produced, shall we say, of the Chantal Akerman canon, such as Jean Dielman, 23 Quai du Commerce, 1080 Bruxelles, or such as this one, Le Rendezvous d'Anna. You can still get a sense of the blurring of that line, which is so brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love it. And I'm getting carried away with myself again. I'm so sorry, but I just can't help it. It's such a moving, beautiful film. This is such a beautiful film. I wish as many people can see it, especially now in this great set. It is really captivating, and I think it the compositions are on point. They feel just right, and they feel so beautiful. And I love distance. I never thought about this before, but even the idea of distance between oneself and a character, that itself can be a beautiful thing, which I never really could articulate my own feelings about until watching works like Jean Guilman, 23 Quai du Commerce, 1080 Bruxelles, or a work like Les Rendezvous d'Anna. The distance itself is its own mode of humanity. The moments of, say, Aurore Clément's performance, which is, again, a performance for the ages. It should be up there in terms of landmark performances of the 20th century. It's remarkable. It's remarkable how much she is showing us in terms of the emotion, and you can tell there's a swirl of emotional depth. There's a particular moment involving her at night trying to find some medicine, and the look on her face while she is on this endeavor. There is maybe the sense of crying and teardrops. There's also silence and solitude, and maybe the possibility of other things that she is thinking about, life and death, perhaps. It's a really powerful moment, and it's done in a way that is quiet and yet again with the sense of distance, and also the precise framing of the camera. Oh my goodness! Over the course of a space of time that elapses. This is an example of Clément's. It is one of the great performances ever, and Chantal Akerman and they're working together. It's remarkable. It's remarkable, and it's so beautiful, and it's so tender. And there are moments where you can tell Anna is really trying to grapple with some of the pressures that are applied on her by the other characters that we meet, including, or maybe not least of which, being the relationship between her and her mother. And also, as I mentioned, there are moments of I think, very honest and sincere beauty and directness. There are moments where she is taking off her clothes and revealing parts of her physical appearance and her body, and appearing nude in a number of scenes in order to, again, express a certain, say, mode of, say, existence in the form of sexual expression, or perhaps there is something going on that is in addition to the sexual expression, or maybe something that's completely outside the realm of sexual expression. Again, it really depends on what it is that happens in that particular scene with that particular rendezvous and the like. But the point is that so much, say, emotional dexterity that's happening, and it is done within such a um, a it's a brilliant, disciplined performance that is so also brimming with so much humanity and emotion. It is one of the great performances. Aurore Clément's Anna is one of the great performances. So there's a particular moment involving a song, Edith Piaf, I think. It is truly breathtaking. So this is one of the great performances in one of the great films, one of the greatest films, great masterpiece from Chantal Akerman. I truly find it breathtaking indeed, one of my favorites. This is the work which is Les Rendezvous d'Anna. The Criterion Collection has released this film, Les Rendezvous d'Anna, as part of this great, great set, Chantal Akerman Masterpieces 1968 to 1978. I have to stop here. Once again, I really hope that as many people can get this set as possible. And I hope as many people as possible can watch this great work, Les Rendezvous d'Anna. Oh, I can't I love this film so much. I can't stress enough just how much I love this. I love all these works in their own ways. But this one is also very special. So I really hope that as many people will get a chance to watch this film as possible. And also because I should point out that, as I've mentioned before, Criterion in the early days, the Eclipse series days, which I hope, by the way, are still in the works. I don't know. I always hold out hope that there might be a new Eclipse series set one day, but oh well. This is the DVD set, the Eclipse series 19, and one of the DVDs was for Les Rendezvous d'Anna, and so it was a really great DVD, a really, really great DVD. It still is. It's a great DVD. And this is when, this is how I could rewatch Les Rendezvous Anna on so many occasions on this. This was one of my favorite Eclipse series sets, by the way, because of, for example, the inclusion of films like Les Rendezvous d'Anna. So this got lots of plays on the DVD player machine, and it still does. But I am so impressed with how this film looks and sounds here for the purposes of this disc, this release. These are Blu-ray discs. Once again, this set is a multi-disc Blu-ray set, 3 discs. Les Rendezvous d'Anna will be found on, it'll be the second work found on Blu-ray disc number 3. So there's News from Home, and then there's Les Rendezvous d'Anna. And with respect to the masters, I refer to pages 42 of the booklet here, and it says, for instance, the restoration was undertaken by Cinematheque, Royal Film Archive of Belgium. And then it says below, for Les Rendezvous d'Anna, the 35mm original camera negative was scanned in 4K resolution with the original monaural soundtrack remastered from the 35mm optical soundtrack positive. This looks and sounds so beautiful and pristine. There's also an interesting way in which, say, shadow and light emerge and respond here. And there are moments where things are happening in near darkness or near total darkness. Sometimes in a car, for instance, where characters are driving. Or sometimes maybe there's darkness, but then there's a real intensity of light that's shone on the face, for instance, of the character of Anna herself. Sometimes that could also be occurring in a train carriage. Sometimes that could be occurring in a train station. Sometimes maybe on a train platform in the evening hours, etc. And sometimes we might have intense moments of flickering light, such as the importance of, say, a TV that's on, but it's flickering static, which is what a great, one of the great scenes. So those, I think, moments are handled so well, and nothing seems to be overcoming the other. There doesn't seem to be any sense of overpowering light or things that are overly flashy or showy in the way it looks in this presentation. There is still a type of diffuse, almost softness that is still at play here, but still sharpness of contour, which I think is so great, so great indeed. Also, details are important here. Not just the look and the framing, but also the clothing and the color scheme. This is something that I paid attention to much more. There's a way in which the how should I put it? There's a kind of subdued pastel type of hue that is occurring, which you can get a sense of when you watch it on DVD, but you can really get a sense of it when you watch it on the Blu-ray. And there's some shots that I thought were just so striking. I never realized just how pastel subdued they were. I don't know if that's a good phrase. I apologize if it's not. But my point is that there is that type of attention to detail which is further enhanced when one watches it, I think, in my view anyway, for this Blu-ray. And then also the sounds too, as I mentioned. Sounds are so key, even down to the clickety-clack of, say, shoes on the floor, or the sound, the ring of the telephone. or the button that's pressed for the answering machine, or details like that. These also ring true in a way that are so clear, and they catch you, but they're just soft enough. So again, this idea of distance and ritual and the details in the world of Chantal Akerman. Oh my goodness, this presentation is so fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. So please check it out if you can. Again, kudos to the great DVD from Eclipse. I still, this is something that really carried me through in terms of my own cinema journey throughout the year. So I will still hold this one very close to my heart. So thank you very much for this. And that being said, the Blu-ray here I think is a real great achievement. So please check it out if you can. And then turning our attention to the film itself, once again, the Blu-ray disc number 1 has its own set of supplements, such as Blu-ray disc number 2 and then Blu-ray disc number 3. So those can be said to be general supplements regarding the set overall, not necessarily tied to one film or another in terms of their positioning on the Blu-ray menu or sub-menu, although in spirit one can say that they might be tied to a particular film. But we will talk about the packaging and overall aspects and those general supplements in one more video. To close out our discussion of the Chantal Akerman Masterpieces 1968 to 1978 set. I look forward to that discussion, my friends. If you're interested as well, please join me there. But before that, let me say that there is one supplement that is linked to Les Rendezvous d'Anna. So when you press Les Rendezvous d'Anna, and it will take you to, among other things, the option to listen to an interview or discussion, I should say, with the great Aurore Clément. This is described as being from the year 2007, 18 minutes. Very sorry, in my excitement I forgot to put the disc in the player here, so or turn it on. So I just wanted to do that for purposes of talking about the supplement linked to Les Rendezvous d'Anna. Please note that the disc, once again, the Blu-ray menu is one of these moving images types with some sound overlaid. So just for the sake of not wanting to risk offending the YouTube copyright gods, I have just blocked it off for purposes of this video. I hope you can forgive me. But I go to select Les Rendezvous d'Anna, and it takes me to the movie. It also takes me to chapters, which is nice. Also, Aurore Clément. And I select on this, and it says, and I quote, Chantal Akerman conducted this interview with actor Aurore Clément, the star of Les Rendezvous d'Anna, at Clément's home in 2007. This is approximately 18 minutes, and it's a video camera that's fixed on Aurore Clément's position at a table. It may be a table in the kitchen, perhaps. Chantal Akerman is in the same room, but she's off screen. But there's actually a real powerful moment towards the end when you can see Chantal Akerman reach out her hand and hold Aurore Clément's hand. It's really so touching. So she's sitting off screen, but she's there next to her, Aurore Clément. But the camera's focusing on Aurore Clément as we hear her discussion talking to Chantal Akerman about many things about this film. For instance, Chantal Akerman here is heard talking about how this role was essentially, the character was essentially like her, Chantal Akerman. So she was looking for someone initially who was a brunette in terms of brown hair, brown colored hair, much like Chantal Akerman herself. But what she discovered, Aurore Clément, a magazine photo, or a magazine that featured Aurore Clément, and she decided to pursue Aurore Clément in terms of the role of Anna, and discussing the two of them then talk about reminiscing about how they were discussing working with each other, the development of the role of Anna, and also the sort of importance of Jeanne Dielman, 23 Quai de Commerce 1080 Bruxelles, in that role, in that way, and then working together too about how it was really important to get the details right in terms of, for instance, the wardrobe and the costume choices, which was really important. There's an interesting story, an anecdote that is told here about the selection of shoes. And the sound of the heels, that was very important. That was, wow, that's such an insightful point. And also the walk too, the walk of Aurore Clément's Anna, which is very important to Chantal Akerman, and also choosing, for instance, the clothing, but also the color of the shirt in a particular moment here, which is great. Aurore Clément mentions, in an interesting way, describes her look. She uses the phrase Hitchcockian, which I think which is a reference to the filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock, which is such an interesting way of describing it. And the idea that comes to mind immediately is sort of a suspense. There's also the way in which the Hitchcock mode of female protagonists, in terms of the what's oftentimes referred to sometimes in the blonde, the cool blonde figure in the world of Hitchcock films. That is something perhaps that Aurore Clément is referring to in terms of the way in which the look of Anna is being essentially worked on and developed between Chantal Akerman and Aurore Clément. And there's a way in which there's a kind of, one can say, from a certain perspective, there is a cool veneer exterior that seems to be exhibited by Anna, at least in certain scenes anyway. But I think there is much like the Hitchcockian tradition, there is even if that is the case in terms of an exterior, say, consensus, there is undoubtedly a real emotional intensity underneath, which is also, I think, what can be said about the character of Anna. There's also an interesting way in which Aurore Clément is talking about how an instance where Chantal Akerman is giving direction about taking off a sweater or putting on a sweater. There's so much care in that act. And there's a reminder, too, of the idea, too, of the details. The word mundane, the word ordinary might seem maybe innocently derisive, perhaps. I don't think it's the case for Chantal Akerman, not in the slightest. I mean, it is in these details that seem everyday and perhaps so ordinary as to be forgotten by anyone else, but not Chantal Akerman. There is a care to all the details, to all the moments, which I think is, it's almost like in its way too, and I feel this way too about speaking about the film Jeanne Dielman, 23 qui de commence 1080 Bruxelles. The idea too about that itself is a kind of celebration of life, celebrating or savoring all the little details, and so every detail seems itself epic and important, which I think is it is again another way of exemplifying the humanity of Chantal Akerman cinema. It's really quite great. And then there's a discussion here, once again returning to the Aurore Clément discussion, about the release of the film, a Paris festival screening that took place. Chantal Akerman had recommended that Aurore Clément doesn't go to the screening. But Aurore Clément wanted to go, and there's a particular moment where she recounts in horror when the audience has reacted very negatively, and in other words, quite violently, to one of the scenes. It occurs a little bit later, involving a song and singing, and there was a lot of derision and maybe a lot of violent negative reaction that was made at the film. So a lot of booing, a lot of screaming, according to them, and so much so that Aurore Clément broke down and she was really crying, but she was consoled by Chantal Akerman, Delphine Seyrig, and others, and really telling her that it is a truly great film and a great performance, and it really is. And so it's so interesting to hear about the reaction of this film at the time. Really interesting. I mean, it reminds me too of some of the notes of Béatrice Loiseau, perhaps maybe related to or parallel to that as well. And also, there's an interesting way this discussion closes about the film Je tu il elle, another of the earlier works by Chantal Akerman. Je tu il elle could be said to be it's a very personal work. And Chantal Akerman was saying about how at first she didn't want Aurore Clément to watch the film, but Aurore Clément was so curious that she wanted to watch the film Je tu il elle, and when she did, and she expresses it now, she says it is so beautiful. Je tu il elle is so beautiful. That's what she says, and so the expressions of she felt so happy. That's what she said, because it was like it's poetry. This is poesy. It's poetry for her, and I think there's a moment in Je tu il elle where there is a scene involving lovemaking, sex between two lovers, women. and their expressions of emotion and physical attraction and physical love and lovemaking with each other. And Chantal Akerman features in this. And so there's you can sense a little bit of maybe hesitancy or embarrassment on the part of Chantal Akerman in this discussion, which is really fascinating. But Aurore Clément really insists in saying it was a beautiful moment. It is a work of poetry. It is liberating, and it is true, and it is honest, and therefore it is beautiful. That is I mean, that is one of the great examples of a review of Je tu il elle. If ever I've seen it, Aurore Clément's review of Je tu il elle is one of the greats. It's so beautiful and so on. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. And yes, it's exactly what Aurore Clément says. It is poetry and it is beautiful. And at this moment, I think this is where you see from off the camera the hand of Chantal Akerman reach over and hold Aurore Clément's hand in a beautiful sense of connection and a type of maybe sense of solidarity and friendship. What a beautiful moment. Wow, what a beautiful moment this is. And so you can tell that how much they're putting their hearts and souls into these films. And it shows. It really does. And it's sometimes it's so brave, and sometimes putting themselves on the line, putting their whole ideas and essences and bodies and themselves on the line. And it might be subject to ridicule and might be subject to violent reactions, such as this description of the screening of Les Rendez-vous d'Anna. But it is themselves, it's true, and yes, it is beautiful, really, really beautiful. And so I love Aurore Clément's description of Je tu il elle, and this is by extension how much I really admire her and Chantal Akerman in their work here with Les Rendez-vous Anna. Oh, this is such a great interview, so please check this out if you can as well. Yes. And then let me conclude by talking about the booklet. Once again, we will talk about the contours of the comprehensive essay and other aspects of the packaging and the set overall and final comments in one more video, my dear friends. Thank you so much for joining me along this journey of the works of Chantal Akerman in this set, by the way. I really appreciate it. So we'll talk about, for instance, the booklet in one more video. But for now, before we leave the world of Les Rendez-vous d'Anna, let us remark upon the fact that there is a great mini essay from which I've actually quoted earlier in this video discussion, starting on page 36 and then on to page 37 and to 38 and 39. These are the Les Rendez-vous d'Anna specific pages with the wonderful mini essay, Beatrice Loisa's essay. It is genius, absolutely genius. And then the cast and crew credits and also some other pictures part of these 4 pages. So when you watch the film, and then you can come back to this essay. It is fantastic. An example of which being the insightful way in which it talks about it also talks to, I didn't mention this before, about maybe also in an interesting way, sort of extension of what might, the idea of traveling certain parts of Europe. And also this might be a type of an extension of say the feelings and connections and maybe a sense of guilt that Chantal Akerman might be feeling or maybe grappling with, or sort of feelings that she has with regard to the post-war climate and atmosphere and aspects of Holocaust survival, which are ringing true for her directly, and her own, say, family background directly. So this, I think, has its certain emotional beats or environmental beats, I think, by virtue of the way in which the travelogue aspect is set up. And I think Beatrice Loiza makes the point really well about this aspect, as well as other aspects here, as in terms of the use of time and a temporal space as well as geographical space. So check out the essay if you can. It's really brilliant. All right, so my goodness, yes, I like this film. No, let me scratch that. I love this film. I love this film so much. It is one of the best films. I mean, it could be considered maybe in some respects to be a companion piece to a work like Jeanne Dielman, 23 Kilos comme 1080 Bruxelles, and I think that it serves that function very well. It could also be said to be a film, quite rightly, and quite forthrightly, it could be said to be standing on its own merits in a way that is, as I say, haunting, beautiful, captivating, mysterious, and oh so extraordinary, thanks to the great contributions by Aurore Clément and the great Chantal Akerman. This is the film which is Les Rendez-vous d'Anna. Alright, my dear friends, so that's it for now. Please join me for one more video on the set, Chantal Akerman Masterpieces 1968 to 1978, if you're interested. I look forward to seeing you there, my dear friends, but we'll talk about the other supplements and also some final words about this wonderful set. But in any event, whatever the case may be for you, my dear friends, I sincerely hope that you continue to be happy and healthy and well, and that you continue to watch a lot of great movies, including Les Rendez-vous d'Anna, including other films by Chantal Akerman, including other films in the Criterion Collection, and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.